Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and this is Volkswagen's pinnacle of performance in their lineup. The Golf R has marked the pinnacle of hot hatchery for now over 20 years, but the segment is now more crowded and more competitive than ever with a new FL5 Type R, a new GR Corolla, we've got JCWs and all sorts of stuff now gunning for its crown. So we're here, thanks to our friends at Hall VW, seeing just how good this thing is and how it stacks up with the best and the rest. Let's get into it. Now before we dive into the video, there's a little bit of housekeeping that I need to do. Now the car in front of me right here is a 2023. It's also the 20th anniversary car, which means it's a $650 upcharge from the normal car from last year. The US spec cars don't get the extra power bump that the Euro cars did. The Euro cars got about 14 more horsepower, but we do get the unique black wheels, the special badging, and some of the trim. We also get the 20 on the B-pillar, the blue R's on the front fender, and even the puddle lights say 20R. And as far as transmission goes, you can get the DSG or you can get a manual. You can't get that overseas. And then in terms of colors, you can get white, black, or blue. And obviously the blue you're seeing here gets the black wheels and the black wing mirrors, but the non-blue cars are going to get blue wing mirrors. And of course, they had to delete the panoramic roof to, quote, save weight. But what's new for the 2024 car? We're going to talk about this car as if it were a 24 because the reality is they haven't changed anything from 23 to 24. But 24 is the last year that you're going to be able to get the manual transmission, and we'll talk more about that later. But with that, let's get into the video. Now the first thing we have to talk about is the technology and some of the slider controls. Now if you watch other videos on the Golf R, people will tell you just how bad the new VW infotainment system is. I should say new anymore. It's not great, okay? But it's not as bad as I think they'd lead you to believe. It's worse in the ID4. Here, it's kind of just a marginal annoyance. But there's the whole thing where there's the finger sensing proximity thing on the screen where you don't have all of the information on the screen until you put your hand close to here. So now I'm taking my hand off the wheel, taking my eyes off the road just to get all the information that I should be able to see just by glancing down. So it's just strange that they would kind of like withhold some of that information until you get there. And then also just kind of a small nitpick, but like the software is a little bit laggy at times until you've rendered a screen. So like when you turn the screen on or when you turn the car on and then you scroll through the first couple menus, it does kind of lag a little bit, but once you've done it and they've rendered the graphics, then it does go pretty quickly and seamlessly. But just a couple things to know, and ultimately it just feels like they've kind of tried to put a little bit too much stuff into the screen and it distracts from the otherwise great driving experience. And that's kind of the cardinal sin of a performance car like this. And really the only other thing that I'm going to ding this car on is just the ergonomics. And yes, I'm talking about the sliders. They've gone with sliders for everything. Sliders for your climate controls, your volume, your sunroof. You've got sliders on your steering wheel. You have to go into the climate menu to adjust your heated and cooled seats. It's little things like that. And these little things are being addressed for the updated 2025 model year, but it still just kind of detracts from the experience. And again, we talked about that on our last point behind the wheel, but you just can't do that with something that's otherwise so good behind the wheel. But there is a lot to love here with this Golf R, so let's talk about that. But then there's the driving experience. Now the Golf R has been the pinnacle of VW's performance lineup for, well, 20 years now. And it's gone by several names, but the formula here generally remains the same. Under the hood thumps away the fourth generation of the EA AAA 2-liter turbocharged four-cylinder, making more power than ever. The steering is a little bit light, but it does have somewhat sense of a feel to it. It does load up in a corner. The Golf R gets a newish, not new anymore, but all-wheel drive system from last generation at least, and the rear end will rotate depending on what you're doing. The Golf R also has a drift mode. You've got LSDs on the front and the rear. You've got torque vectoring. I mean, you've got adaptive damping. You've got all of these things to make the car feel as dynamic and sporty as possible. And of course, what can be said for having 6 speeds and 3 pedals and being able to row your own gears and enjoy it, because 2024 is the last year that you're going to be able to do that. The United States and Canada are the only countries that you're able to do it now, but next year, no one's going to be able to do it. Down the box. Oh, and boost. It's just a joy, an absolute joy to drive. And I know we just touched on it a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit more in detail about this engine because it is a honey. It is the 4th generation of VW's iconic EA888 2-liter turbo. And here for the Golf R, it's dialed up to 315 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That's almost the same specs as the Type R. The Type R is just bringing a little bit more torque. And if you match this engine with the DSG, you're going to unlock the full speed and performance, which is going to get you 0 to 60 in the low 4-second range, which is a full second or so faster than its little sibling, the GTI. Which leads me to transmissions, and we just kind of touched on this, but you have a choice of 2 transmission options. The one we have here is the 6-speed manual transmission, and simply put, it's pretty great. The clutch engagement is defined, your pedal box is well spaced for heel and toe, your shifter has some pretty nice satisfying throws, not quite as satisfying as a Type R, but still pretty good. But let's say you don't want to row your own gears. You also have a very good option in VW's 7-speed DSG, which is incredible. Not quite as snappy or rah-rah-rah crazy as the Elantra N or Kona N, but still very, very good, very crisp, very well refined, even on day-to-day casual driving. And the cool thing about the DSG is if you go for that transmission, it was in the GTI that we tested last week, it looks like the little Gillette style, shaver that you get in something like a 911. It just makes the car feel a little bit more special. But I think I mentioned it also, the cool thing is, as of now, you can only get the manual transmission in the Golf R and the GTI in North America, Canada, United States, and this is the last year. 2024 is going to be the last year that you can do that. So maybe I would get one. And then I want to touch on styling, and I think it looks really handsome. I know we talked about some of the 20-year special anniversary stuff for the 2023 model year, but I want to focus more on the styling overall, because this is a carryover for 2024, and we're going to talk about it in that context. But objectively, I think this still is really handsome for a hot hatch. You can only get it in 3 colors, white, black, or blue. It doesn't have the cool lower fog light elements like we had in the GTI, but it still looks really aggressive. You've got the blue bar at the top of your grille as you usually would, and you've got a light bar that runs under the blue bar to give it the classic VW front signature look. The running lights are really cool, the wheels are nice and aggressive, especially the 19 inches, and you can see the blue brakes with the R painting on them peeking out from underneath, giving it a nice aggressive stance. You've got your classic front fender badge with your R on it, and you will get silver wing mirrors on your 2024s. It's a conventional hatch shape though, and from the profile you can see that this isn't a huge car, which is a good thing. You've got a more aggressive spoiler at the top of your hatch, and the rear end design is very simple and minimal, with your reverse camera being hidden by the VW logo, which is great for salt and wintry conditions like we get here in Wisconsin. And then of course your R on the center of the back gate, and then you've got quad exhaust making kind of fun noises. And I know this generation of VW doesn't have quite the same build, feeling, and material as Volkswagens of yesteryear, but still, from an interior perspective, this is where the Golf R stands head and shoulders above really pretty much anything else in the segment. We'll start with the steering wheel. It looks really cool. It's got the blue stitching, it's got the R logo at the bottom, and it's got loads of cool lit up buttons, including an R button that's blue and unleashes a whole bunch of track and performance-y fun. And then to the left of that, you've got your light and sight panel, which for some reason makes me feel like kind of Tony Stark-ish. You do have a bunch of ambient lights that you can choose from too, and they change the entire theme of the car, the entire light signature, and it just makes it feel unique. And then in terms of the seats, they're really interesting. They're blue accented, they've got the R stitched into the top of the seat, and they've even got like carbon fiber accenting or carbon fiber looking stuff on the rims of the seat. It's really cool. Of course, they're heated and cooled. And you've got a heated steering wheel, of course, as well. You'll also get a sunroof in 2024 cars. We don't have it here for the 2023 because this is the 20-year anniversary edition and they removed it for quote-unquote weight savings. But overall, between the materials, the design, and some of the features that you get here, I mean, this is not stuff that you're seeing in the Type R or the GR Corolla or really anything else. And then in the back seat, again, this is one of the practical things about having a hot hatch, is the fact that you get a rear seat that a 6-footer can sit back here in. I've got an inch or 2 of knee room in front of me, and even with my hat on, I don't hit my nub. I've got another inch of clearance before I run into the ceiling. So it's pretty impressive back here from a space perspective. It's also pretty impressive from a features perspective. You've got a dedicated climate zone back here. You've got 3-level heated seats back here. You've got individual pockets at the top of the front seats for phones or wallets or whatever, and then of course your typical map pockets down below. And all of the cool detailing from the front translates back here, like blue accenting in your headrest, and then that kind of faux carbon fiber look throughout the seats. I mean, this is absolutely a place that I could sit for, an hour or 2 or whatever and still feel pretty comfortable. And then again, just like the rear seats, the trunk or the hatch is the point that you go with this class of vehicle. It's huge. You've got a huge opening. It's very practical. It's like a square, so it's easy to put stuff in. With the rear seats up, you're looking at about 20 cubic feet of space. If you fold them down, you're looking at about 34 and a half, and that's plenty practical to put just about anything you could think of. And then there's the price and demand. Now for 2024, the Golf R starts at $45,665. Add $800 for the DSG if you want, but that's pretty much it. And that does make it marginally more expensive than a Type R. And it also makes it quite a bit more expensive than something like a GR Corolla, but those are, you know, at starting prices without the LSDs and stuff like that. But it's also less money than an Integra Type S, which is a more true competitor to something like this. And if you want to go the mini route, a comparable JCW Clubman is going to be significantly more expensive than the Golf R. So the Golf R here is actually a pretty decent value. So in the Golf R, it does that thing where it like automatically blip the throttle for you. So I'm not going to press the gas. I'm just going to let out the clutch slowly. So it's like nearly impossible to stall. This and the GTI have that, and it's just kind of nice, especially if you're just learning to drive stick. The GTI probably makes more sense if you're just learning to drive stick, but it's just kind of nice. Kind of nice. You're not going to embarrass yourself at Cars and Coffee. Okay, let's see. Mode, race. I've never driven in a Nürburgring mode, so let's see what that's all about, shall we? Oh my God. Okay, fast. Fast. Tip in, great corner entry, excellent power. Brakes. Good mid-corner hold. Excellent. Good car. Fast car. Oh, excellent. This is fun. This is a fun car. Okay. Hello, 335. That's the car I wanted to buy when I was in high school. Anyway, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this Golf R because it is a lot of fun. Nürburgring mode is pretty cool. So 315 horsepower, almost 300 pound-feet of torque. I think it's plenty for something like this. This is a law. You have to do this when you're stopped. It's also advised that you do that. Okay, so yeah, power is good. I love the fact that you can still get a stick here. You're not gonna get that anywhere else in the world. It's just US and Canada, it's just North America. And after 2024 here, it's over. There's no more stick, it's all DSG from there. And the DSG is great. We just did a review on the GTI with the DSG and it was lovely, but I just love being able to row my own gears. The shift action is pretty good. It's nice and notchy. The clutch is easily defined. It's just a nice and easy thing to drive. You know, we talked about at the beginning of the behind the wheel portion. It's easy to approach. It's not intimidating to drive. The damping is great, the visibility is great, and when you just want it to chill out, we're gonna throw in comfort mode. Okay, so yeah, in comfort mode, the engine kind of chills out a bit. I can shift a little bit smoother and slower. Easy to roll on power. The suspension is adaptive. You got like 15 different levels of adaptability. You can totally customize it in your screen. Your cluster adjusts to however you want to drive, and there's really not much I can say bad about this car. The only thing that I'll say, the only thing that I don't love, is the steering is crazy light, but it's also really responsive. So it's kind of like the same thing in my BMW. It doesn't have a lot of feedback. It's really responsive. It's got a good front end, but it's just no feel. But this, whereas in the BMW, it's really heavy to make up for it, this is really, really light. Really light. So that is the best in the rest of the VW Golf R. I know at the beginning of the video I said that this thing has more competition than it ever has before, and that is technically true, but when you really start to break down the competitors, you see things like the Kona N, it's front-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive, and it doesn't really compete in terms of refinement or, you know, complexity here. And then you've got the FL5, the new Type R, it's legendary, it's fantastic, but it also is just front-wheel drive. It doesn't compete on the interior either. And then you've got the GR Corolla, which is down on a cylinder, it's down on power, and the interior is nowhere near what you're getting here. And then you get into the more luxury tier vehicles like an Integra Type S, which again is front wheel drive. It's just a ritzed up kind of Civic Type R. It's very good, but it doesn't have the same personality, the same dynamicism as you're gonna get from the Golf R. And then you get to the JCW Minis, which have an all wheel drive system, but it's not the clever one that you get here and is gonna be more expensive. So what it ends up being is this Golf R still is probably the king in terms of performance and value for dollars. So thanks again to our friends at Hall VW for letting us have a go, and we'll see you in the next one, hopefully with the newly updated generation.